A Tyrannosaurus rex arm was only about 1 meter long. It could not reach the animal's mouth. The two hands could not even meet in front of its chest. Yet the bones were thick, the joints were functional, and the muscles may have been capable of moving hundreds of pounds. So the famous joke has a problem. T-Rex arms were comically small, but small does not automatically mean weak, and weak does not automatically mean useless. The real mystery is not whether these arms could do anything. Clearly, they could move and apply force. The difficult question is what Tyrannosaurus rex actually did with them. That is where solid anatomy ends and behavioral speculation begins. T-Rex lived in western North America near the end of the Cretaceous period, roughly 68 to 66 million years ago. A large adult could reach around 12 meters in length, with a massive skull, powerful hind limbs, and a long, muscular tail. Against that enormous body, the arms look almost absurdly reduced. For decades, scientists did not even have a complete T-Rex arm to examine. The famous skeleton mounted at the American Museum of Natural History in 1915 had been found without its forelimbs. Preparators initially reconstructed three-fingered hands based on another large theropod, Allosaurus. Other Tyrannosaur fossils soon suggested that the real hand had only two functional fingers, but direct confirmation from T-Rex did not arrive until 1988. While exploring near Fort Peck Reservoir in Montana, Kathy Wankel discovered the first complete T-Rex arm. The fossil finally showed the entire structure, including its two clawed fingers. It was short, but it was not flimsy. The upper arm bone, or humerus, was compact and robust. Its shaft was relatively straight, with thick outer bone capable of resisting substantial loads. The surfaces where muscles attached were well developed. The elbow worked, and each hand ended in two large claws. A tiny remnant of a third metacarpal could remain buried within the hand, but it did not support another functional clawed finger. In other words, this was not simply a pair of loose bones dangling from the chest. It was a complete mechanical system, with muscles, tendons, joints, fingers, and claws. One influential biomechanical study reconstructed the arm muscles and lever mechanics. The researchers concluded that the limb was built more for force than speed. Under their assumptions, the biceps alone may have been able to move a load approaching 200 kilograms. Other muscles would also have contributed. That number sounds spectacular, but it needs context. It is a model-based estimate, not the result of a living T-Rex performing a laboratory strength test. The calculation depends on reconstructed muscle size, attachment areas, joint position, and other assumptions, and strength is only useful inside the space an arm can reach. T-Rex had a restricted working area at the shoulder and elbow. The arms projected from beneath a deep chest, and their short length kept the hands close to the body. They could not sweep through the enormous range available to a human arm. They could not extend toward an animal several meters away. They could not pass food to the mouth or manipulate objects directly in front of the snout. Imagine a powerful clamp mounted beneath the front of a truck. The clamp may be strong, but it cannot reach very far, and it cannot replace a crane. Its possible jobs are limited by where it sits and how it moves. This is why the phrase, T-Rex could curl 200 kilograms, does not solve the mystery. A strong arm is evidence of physical capacity. It is not a recording of behavior. One proposal is that the arms helped hold prey close to the chest while the jaws attacked. The robust bones, force-oriented mechanics, and claws are at least compatible with gripping. If a struggling animal was already pressed against the body, even short arms might have helped stabilize it. But compatibility is not proof. The largest prey animals weighed several tons, far beyond what these arms could control by themselves. The hands also had extremely limited reach compared with the jaws. T-Rex possessed a huge, bone-crushing head that could seize prey without first bringing it into the tiny forelimbs working area. Another proposal turns the claws into close-range slashing weapons. Again, the anatomy makes some forceful movement possible, but the arms were so short that T-Rex would already need to be almost chest to body with its target. There are no known wounds on prey fossils that can be uniquely identified as scratches made by T-Rex hand claws. Slashing remains a hypothesis, not an established hunting technique. Other suggestions include holding a mate, helping the animal rise, assisting with balance, signaling, or interacting with a nest. Some are mechanically more plausible than others, but none has decisive fossil support. We do not have preserved mating behavior, arm movements, or a T-Rex nest with an adult frozen in the act of using its hands. Even an injured arm does not reveal a precise job. Fossils such as Sioux preserve damage around the forelimb and shoulder region, showing that these structures could experience stress or trauma during life. That supports the basic point that they were living, loaded parts of the body. It cannot tell us whether an injury happened during hunting, mating, a fall, combat, or an accident. The word vestigial can also cause confusion. In evolutionary biology, vestigial does not always mean completely functionless. It can describe a structure that has become strongly reduced from its ancestral condition or has lost its original major role. A reduced structure may still perform minor or occasional tasks. Early tyrannosauroids had proportionally longer arms and more developed hands. Across Tyrannosaur evolution, the skull became much larger and more robust, while the forelimbs became less prominent. By the time of T-Rex, prey capture was dominated by the head and jaws rather than long, grasping arms. A major study published in 2026 placed this pattern in a much wider evolutionary context. Researchers compared forelimbs, skulls, and body sizes across dozens of non-avian theropod species. They found that reduced arms evolved independently in at least 5 carnivorous theropod lineages. The strongest relationship was not simply between tiny arms and a gigantic body. Forelimb reduction was closely associated with increasingly robust skulls. That helps explain why unrelated predators could arrive at a similar silhouette. Tyrannosaurids, abelisaurids, and carcharodontosaurids did not inherit tiny arms from one recent short-armed ancestor. Their lineages reduced the forelimbs separately as the head became a more important prey-subduing weapon. But this new research answers a different question. It helps explain why the arms became small over evolutionary time. It does not identify every task the remaining arms performed in a living T-Rex. Another proposed explanation suggests that shorter arms were safer around feeding tyrannosaurs. If several enormous individuals crowded around a carcass, long forelimbs near the food could have been bitten, broken, or amputated. Keeping the arms close to the body might have reduced that danger. It is an intriguing idea, but it depends on behavior that is itself uncertain. Fossil sites containing multiple tyrannosaurs suggest that individuals sometimes gathered, yet they do not prove regular cooperative hunting or a specific feeding system. The injury avoidance idea remains testable speculation, not the final answer. That distinction matters because dinosaur anatomy can tempt us into inventing a single dramatic purpose for every structure. We see claws and imagine slashing. We see muscle attachments and imagine prey wrestling. We see reduced limbs and imagine total uselessness. The fossils support a more interesting answer. T-Rex arms were drastically reduced relative to the animal's body and compared with the forelimbs of its distant ancestors. They had limited reach and mobility. They were not the main weapons of a predator whose enormous skull had taken over that role. At the same time, the remaining arms were robust, muscular, jointed, and clawed. They could apply meaningful force within a very small working area. They may have been useful for several occasional tasks rather than one specialized behavior, or they may have retained more strength than their diminished importance required. So the arms were neither secret superweapons nor pointless evolutionary mistakes. They were reduced tools attached to an animal that had shifted its predatory power forward into one of the most formidable heads ever carried by a land predator. The joke focuses on what T-Rex lacked. The skeleton tells a better story. Those arms were small because the head had become dominant, but exactly how T-Rex used what remained is still held just beyond the reach of the fossils.